Good afternoon and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB Business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben. I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business, and I'll be the one taking you through today's webinar presentation. So just a little bit before we get kicked off for today's webinar session. Once again, my name is Ben. So I'll be talking you through an introduction just now, just as we are. And then once we get into today's webinar, a little bit about how that works as well. So we're going to be running through 3 core topics, as we always do. Now, what we're going to do in between each of these 3 core topics is make sure that we take a good amount of time between each one to allow time for any questions that you might wish to ask and any time to jot down any notes that you might wish to take as well. All right, so if you do have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen there, and I'll get them for you at the end of today's session during the Q&A segment. We always run that for a few minutes after the webinar, and it's always a pleasure to answer any questions that you have. So please don't be shy in asking away with any questions you might wish to ask today as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's get kicked off for today's webinar session. So I'll go ahead and switch off my video camera. So you shouldn't be able to see me anymore, but you should hopefully still be able to hear my voice. And in just a moment's time, you should also be able to see the presentation that we have for you today up on screen there as well. So I'm just going to grab that so that we have it ready. All right, so there we go. Maximizing profit for your business even in the early days. So that should be what is up on your screen just now. You should see a title slide and you should be able to hear my voice as well. So if I could please ask a big favor right before we get kicked off, just let me know in the chat box, and welcome to everybody that is on with us today. Just let me know in the chat box if you can hear my voice okay, and indeed that you can see the presentation up on screen okay there as well. And then I will know that we are ready to get kicked off for today's session. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Looks like we're good to go. So thank you so much for the confirmation. Today's topic of conversation is maximizing profit for your business, even in the early days. Okay, now let's talk about a little bit about me, and then just so you know who's talking to you, and then we'll run through a little bit about the presentation itself and what we're going to cover today. So my name is Ben. I'm a business coach, and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business, and I'm the one that will be taking you through today's webinar presentation. Now, my specialty is working with small businesses, helping them grow, helping them achieve stability. That is what I love to do, and that is why I'm always so happy to be on here presenting these webinars. Our discussion points for today then, okay, today's session. Number 1, look to the future, okay, something we've always got to be thinking about. Number 2, focus on your decision-making skills. This is a major, major factor in business, and one that is often overlooked. So it's our responsibility and our job today to make sure that it is not overlooked anymore. And finally, think returns, okay? Think about what this is going to mean for your business. And we'll cover more of that when we get to topic number 3 today, okay? So let's begin with looking to the future, okay? Now, first point here, first and foremost on today's webinar session, each move for the business that you make now should reap positive results long term, okay? Now, we're talking about maximizing profit here, even in the early days. And a big part of maximizing business profit is making decisions that make sense for your business, not only now, but also long term, okay? And this is going to help us maximize profit for the business overall. And what we need to think about is when we say each move here, what we're referring to is a move that you make in business, and therefore a decision or something that is going to change direction from where it currently is. So each move that you make for the business now should reap positive results long term. So when you're thinking about doing something, we must think to ourselves, okay, well, is this going to make sense for us right now? But is it also going to make sense for us in 6 months' time, a year's time, 2 years' time? Okay, and these are the kinds of things that we think about. So, for example, we have a budget of £100, and with that budget of £100, we could buy a new coffee machine for the office, or we could have a part of our website redesigned. Okay, now there's one obvious option that is going to reap benefits for us positively long-term for the business, okay? And it's clear which one that is, all right? So we begin thinking about things like this and how we're going to encourage our business to grow and grow and grow. Now, a big part of business in the early days is focusing on what we hope to be doing in 1, 3, 5 years' time. All right. Now, these are just timelines that we put down. Often we can think quarter to quarter, year to year, 3-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. You've probably heard these before. All right. So 1, 3, and 5 years are an example. You don't need to focus on them if you prefer a different timeline, but the consensus of this point is that we need to be thinking about what it is that is going to be achieved by ourselves and also by our business over this upcoming timeline, okay, and where we really want to be. So if we are wanting to look at being at a certain point in 1 year's time, right? And by the way, 1, 3, and 5 years, they're still considered early points in our business, okay? 5-year-old business is still a very, very young early business. So this is what we need to think about. And it'll also alleviate perhaps some of the pressure of achieving things right here, right now, and allow us to realize that even a year in or 3 years in or even 5 years in, that's still very, very early in the grand scheme of things for our business to really begin generating the results that we're looking for. So we need to be thinking, is this move that we're making now, is that going to help us get to where we want to be in 1 year's time? Is it going to help us get to where we want to be in 3 years' time? Is it going to get us to where we want to be in 5 years' time? Because if it's not, we need to reconsider the moves that we're thinking about making, okay? Now, subsequently, this does have an influence on the behavior we exhibit early on in our business. It allows us to come out of the gate with a clear mind and not overly eager, okay? So there's a big difference between these two things. I'm going to start with the over-eager concept that we're speaking about here. Many, many early business owners will come out of the gate really overly strong, okay? Now, what I mean by this is motivation is great, enthusiasm is great, but if we get overly excited about the early stage of our business, we might make decisions that serve us only right now, short term, that don't not necessarily reap results long term, okay? So let's say that we're so amped up, we're so ready to go that we decide to put £1,000 into an advertising campaign over only 1 week. Now, regardless of what that campaign does, it's unlikely to yield benefit for the next 3 months, 3 years, okay? We're not thinking long term when we get that overexcited and that sort of over eager to make something happen right now, here, today, tomorrow, okay? So instead, what we'll be looking to do that is, okay, let's use that fund, use those funds to improve our website, our design, our imagery, perhaps, educate ourselves on SEO. These are all long-term benefits that are going to keep your business going long-term, but also allow you to enjoy improvements now, okay? Because you're going to get the new website very, very soon, and that'll provide benefit for years and years and years to come, okay? If it's a great website. So we want to come out the gate with a clear mind, not over eager. We want to be able to think, where do I want this business to be in 5 years' time? And how am I going to help it get there? The decisions that I'm making right now, are they still going to benefit down the line? Okay, that is money well spent. So, for example, attending a networking event right now may not reap immediate benefits. Okay, so a different example here, and it's a good one to use. But in 6 months' time, someone may pick up your business card and give you a call. Okay, so it's not to say that nothing is going to give you quick gratification, as it were. But what we need to be thinking about is, okay, maybe that networking event that you felt was pointless that you attended last night in the city, that could provide benefits for you in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 12 months' time, or beyond. Okay. It's something that we have to always be thinking about. Is making connections now going to be good for my business? Is having a good website going to be good for my business? Is having a good online presence going to be good for my business? The answer to all those things is yes. Okay. So look to the future. That brings us to the end of topic number 1. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, as promised, take a brief pause. Should give you a chance to jot down any notes you might wish to take, and indeed fire away with any questions that you have for us as well. And we'll pick those up for you at the end of today's webinar during the Q&A segment. Perfect. Okay, so we've had a time to jot down the questions, jot down the note. Let's move on to topic number 2. Focus on your decision-making skills, a very, very good trait to have in business. All right. Now, decisions matter. they matter all throughout your business lifetime, but especially in the early days, okay? So as you will see, being a business owner, there are lots of decisions to make, lots of things to decide on, lots of things that could go well, lots of things that might not go as well as you would have hoped. Now, the key factor in this is that you cannot be afraid of making decisions, okay? And often the reason that we don't make a lot of decisions a lot of the time, or we procrastinate on them, or we push them back, it's because we're afraid of what the potential outcome of that decision might be. Now, we don't always necessarily go all the way through that thought process, because if we did, we would often realize that sometimes some outcome is better than no outcome at all, which will happen, because it can give us clarity on certain things. Now, this rule, of course, doesn't apply to things that could be potentially detrimental to your business. But on the grand scheme of things, if you're unsure whether to go down road A or road B, often you'll just be happy to be driving down one road. Okay. So what I mean by that is don't be afraid of making decisions. Take your time to make them and make them efficiently, but do not be afraid to pursue certain decisions. Okay. Now, decisions do matter. They matter all the way throughout your business life, but especially in the early days, because you're going to have lots of decisions to make. You're going to have branding decisions. You're going to have business decisions, sales decisions, marketing decisions, launch decisions, all of these kind of different things that are going to go through your mind, and it can become overwhelming. So let's talk about decision-making skills. Okay. Now, first of all, a poor financial decision can hamper your ability to grow. All right. Now, what we want to be thinking is frugal in the early stages of our business. Being frugal is very, very important because we understand where to spend our money, okay? And we understand that it's not necessarily that we're not wanting to spend it, it's that we're looking to spend it in the correct place, okay? So a poor financial decision, it can hamper your ability to grow, okay? As we discussed earlier on, if we spent £1,000 in one specific advert for 1 week, that could be such a short-term decision because it's not going to reap rewards for us long-term. I mean, it might, but if we're zapping the whole year's budget in 1 week, we have given ourselves almost no ability to make any kind of, investment, advertising-wise or otherwise potentially for the rest of the year. We haven't then built something either that could last us long-term, like a website, or provide value for us long-term, like a website, okay? Poor financial decisions, they can hamper your ability to grow, okay? Because we've sucked all of the budget so early on, and we've more so than that, we have spent it on something that potentially won't reap for a while, okay, or at all. So a poor financial decision can hamper your ability to grow. So let's always be careful when we're making those financial decisions and think about being frugal with your money, okay? Now, for example, over-investing in a paid ad with very little preparatory work, okay? Now, one example that we used is the one that we're talking about by, putting £1,000 in an ad that runs for a week. But also, this can apply to all paid advertising and often a lot of other ways that we spend money in advertising across our business as well, okay? If there's no preparatory work, we don't know what that ad is likely to achieve. Now, if we don't know what it's likely to achieve, it could go very, very well, okay? And it would almost be, accidental, or it could go very, very poorly. Now, the chances of it going well versus it going poorly, I would say more likely to go poorly if we haven't thought it through and haven't planned it properly. There are more things that can go wrong than can go right, if that makes sense. So what we're looking to do is prepare for the ad, understand it, understand the target audience, understand the messaging and why we're saying what we're saying, and understanding what we hope to have as an outcome from the advert. Now, if we do these things, we'll then be able to rely on the fact that we've done as much as we can. Therefore, we've thought it through, we've researched it, and we anticipate, we can't guarantee, but we anticipate decent results from the ad, okay? So poor financial decision, it can hamper your ability to grow, all right? Now, the right decision may have been to split the budget between the ad with better planning and investing the other half in a networking membership, something that's going to provide for you over the next year, okay? Now, I use this as an example. Not every membership for networking will last a year, but typically you buy a year's worth or whatever. Now, this gives you the chance to meet new people every month for the next 12 months. It gives you the chance to make new connections every month for the next 12 months, and who knows where those connections could lead to, all right? So instead of spending all of your money on a poorly thought out ad, consider other ways that money could be spent, okay? Decisions, decisions, decisions. It's something that you're going to have all the time early on in business, and you have to be thinking in the best interest of the business and not jumping too quickly into a certain decision, okay? We want to make them efficiently, but we want to make them well. So that brings us to the end of topic number 2. Once again, I'll give you a brief pause to go through any questions and any notes you may wish to take, and I'll see you again in just a moment for topic number 3. Okay, excellent. So thank you for the questions. We'll get those for you at the end of today's webinar session. Now we're looking at think returns. Okay, so is the financial decision you're about to make for your business going forward to provide a return for it now or in the future? Okay, so is the financial decision you're about to make for your business going to provide a return for it now or in the future? It's a good question. Okay, now this is very, very important. And the way that we're looking at investing in things like advertising or any kind of marketing decision for the business, it's very, very important. Okay, is the financial decision you're about to make for your business going to provide a return for it now or in the future? Now, both are ideal, but what we've been talking about through the webinar is making sure that it's going to do both. Okay, now is good. Future wouldn't necessarily say better, but very much so we want to be thinking long term. Okay, so what I'm getting at, as I'm sure is coming across, we want to be thinking about the business long term. We want to be making sure that it is going to do good things now, but just as importantly, it's going to do good things in the future as well. So always be thinking, what's the return on this? Okay, if you take anything away from this webinar, think, is there going to be a return? Can I take something away from this right now and long term? But most importantly, is it going to do anything? As we said, a coffee machine for the office might be lovely, but financially for the business, it's very unlikely unless you have clients coming in that enjoy coffee and spent more money as a result. It's a funny example, and probably not going to happen. Okay, so we need to think about what are we going to put into the business that is going to provide for us with the business income wise long term. Okay, that includes now, it includes in the future. All right, so long term, starting now all the way through to the future. Is this decision I'm about to make going to provide that benefit? Okay, now let's look at investment versus expense. Okay, so what we're going to think about here, what is an expense? An investment and expense are not the same thing. Okay, an expense is something that will give us almost no return. Okay, virtually, well, not even virtually sometimes no return whatsoever. Okay, now returns aren't always monetary, but in this instance, let's look at an expense, buying coffee pods for the office. The return on that is enjoying good coffee, okay? But otherwise, it's going to create absolutely zero income for the business whatsoever. An investment would be something like a very, very well thought out advert, okay? An investment, completely different from an expense, is when we invest in something, so the funds that we invest in an advert, that money, if we've done it correctly, hopefully won't just disappear and never come back. It'll go into the advert, it'll generate more income for the business, and therefore it's providing return. It's an investment, okay? An investment, something that provides a return, okay? So business-wise, in the context of investments in business and in advertising, that's the context. That's what we're looking at, okay? So we're not talking about investments in any other capacity other than exactly, in this instance, investing in advertising for your business, okay? So when we do this, hopefully, now, as we said, we can never guarantee it, but hopefully, whatever we've invested in will bring a return to our business in a monetary format, okay? Now, take advantage of free opportunities. The ROI in these is 100%, okay? Now, it's a phrase I like to say because if you put nothing into it, the worst that can happen is you get nothing out of it, okay? But it hasn't actually cost you anything other than your time and effort, okay? So talking about it in a financial capacity, okay, for in the context of are we spending money on going to that networking event or not going to that networking event, okay? We go to that networking event, it's completely free. We haven't invested any business money into it. Therefore, the return on investment is 100%, okay, or 0%, I suppose, but it's kind of a fun take on it, All right. So the ROI on these is 100% because you have nothing to lose. Now, of course, this isn't a literal statistic. You're not going to get 100% return on it. Okay. But what we're looking at here in a sort of jokey, funny way is that the ROI on these is 100%. And the reason we say that is because worst case scenario, you're going to get nothing. Best case scenario, you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clients. So take advantage of the free opportunities, okay? Encourage early clients to recommend you as well by way of referral for something in return, okay? So when you do start generating business, when you do start generating income for your business by way of clients, say to these clients, refer me, recommend me, and in exchange, I can give you money off your current fee, or I can, reduce that, or I can give you something, I can give you an additional part of a website free of charge. Whatever makes sense for your specific client relationship, encourage this with your early clients. And again, we've got to think returns long term, and we've got to start planting these seeds now to come back around, grow into plants and trees in the future. Okay, but we have to be at the work now, right now at the start, if we wanted to provide for the future. Okay, so I'm sure often as most of us think, sometimes in specific situations we say, "Oh, I wish I'd done that sooner, or I wish I'd started doing this earlier." This is your opportunity. When you open your business for the first time, start creating these things that will return in the future. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar session. Okay, so we'll do a recap and then we'll dive onto the Q&A segment. So the moves you make now will impact your business future. Very, very important to keep this in mind. Number 2, invest in your business wisely. Okay, there's a difference between investing in expense. And finally, free opportunities have 100% ROI. Okay, it's a jokey take, but there is a message there. If you don't invest anything, if you don't invest any money, what's the worst that can happen? Okay. So as always, a massive thank you for taking the time to attend today's iOB business webinar. It's been a genuine pleasure speaking with you about maximizing your profits in the early days of the business. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to look at the questions that I have from you today, and we're going to talk about them. Okay, so if you'd like to talk to us, you can talk to a member of our team over at iob-business.com/talk. And on this link, you can book a call at a time that suits you. And when you do follow that link, you'll see a calendar that looks just like this one. You can pick a time and a date that suits you best. So, questions. How would you suggest getting my first client? Okay, great question. So here's a sort of good length answer for you, okay? Share what you do, all right? Nobody can buy from you if they don't know that you exist, okay? If they don't know that your product or service exists, they physically cannot buy it, okay? So use your socials, go to networking events, exercise your current network, go door to door, call every business in your area, do whatever it takes to generate business, okay? If you ask me now, Ben, you need to get your first client in whatever industry, it's the first thing I would do. I would be busy. I would share what I do. I would go to networking events. I would go door to door if that's what it took. Okay. Fantastic question. Hopefully that answer makes sense. Next question. I've made bad business investments in the past. I feel it makes me unsure of decision making for the business now. Fair enough. Okay. So my advice here is always the same. Look to the future. Always take time to review what's happened, what went wrong, and how you can fix it. Okay. Perhaps implement an SOP, a standard operating procedure, for deciding if the decision is a good one, okay, based on the needs of the business, based on where you want the business to be. So, in other words, does this have the potential to produce more clients for the business? Okay, simply put. And always be thinking this way. And if something bad happens, in terms of like an advert didn't work out as well as you thought it would, review why that happened and try and not make that same mistake again. Fantastic question. Thank you for that. Do we have any more questions from today? It doesn't look like we do. Okay, well, as always, thank you very much for attending the webinar. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you again on the next one. Take care and bye for now.